Okay. Thank you, Brett. My name is Lauren, and I'm an alcoholic. And this is my second time doing this ever. My sobriety date is September 5th of 2022. My sponsor said I couldn't write any notes down, but that is one note I did write in case I forgot. My home group is Recovery on the Row here in Nashville. And I have a sponsor, my sponsor has a sponsor, and I could say that 8 times because I have met 8 generations of sponsors that I have. I go to a retreat here twice a year, and it's pretty cool to have community like that, to meet 8 sponsors up. We all have a photo together, so it's pretty special to be a part of a community like that. All right, so what I was like. I didn't grow up here. I grew up in just outside of Toronto in Canada. I came to the States when I was 22 years old. I was someone that I was either all in or I was all out. I was a very black or white thinker. I was involved in a lot of things growing up. I come from a family of 6. I have 3 younger brothers. We're all a year apart. So we're really close. My dad worked. My mom was a stay-at-home mom and raised us. And yeah, from a really early age, I was put into a lot of activities growing up. I was a competitive dancer, and a competitive dancer to the absolute extreme. If you've ever seen the show Dance Moms, like that, but kind of on steroids. So dancing was my life, and parents put me in piano. I went to French immersion school. I was involved in everything you could imagine at school. So by all accounts, I mean, I was very blessed to have a really great childhood from the outside. My brothers were involved in a lot of activities as well. But I really didn't have a lot of time to be a kid at all. I remember thinking, like, if I had time to come home between school before I went off to a sport or dance or a lesson, I remember just thinking if I could just get like 2 minutes to just lay on my bed before I go to the next thing. There were very high expectations placed on me, no matter where that was that I went, and there was always consequences if I didn't meet them, real and perceived. So yeah. Growing up, I learned that my environment and the things around me, the people that I was supposed to really trust, weren't necessarily safe for me. And that was from people to experiences. And I bring these up because they had a significant impact on the way that I viewed the world and the way that I just threw myself into all the activities that I was a part of. And one of the most notable things that probably happened to me when I was 15 years old, as part of my, learning and development, my parents sent me to France to do an exchange for a summer. And on the way home, 15 years old, the plane actually crashed at Toronto Pearson Airport. So I survived. Clearly, everyone survived. But, I went to do this crazy experience overseas. This was before, cell phones were just kind of taking off. This was 2005. And I really didn't think, going through that experience as the plane was going down, I remember thinking, this is it. There's no more. And then the plane had a crash landing. It caught on fire before it ended up crashing, and then we stopped, and I realized, damn, I'm still here. We got to get out of this thing. So then it was another moment of, is this plane going to blow up? So we all ended up getting out, and following that experience, I got thrust into the news cycle. I was kind of the face of the plane crash when I was 15 years old. And that was probably more traumatic for me than actually going through the experience, having to recount the story over and over and over again for TV shows, newspapers, radio stations. And again, I just wanted to be a kid. I didn't want all of this. So yeah, I learned that things that you're supposed to trust, an airplane, transportation, it wasn't safe. I wasn't safe in my body. And then I was trapped in this tube that I couldn't get out of, which I ended up getting out of. And it's something that I never dealt with, because I no longer want it to be known as the girl who survived a plane crash. And since my mom was pretty opportunistic, she had me enter an essay contest when I was 16 to talk about that experience, and I ended up winning this essay contest, and I made it on the cover of Reader's Digest, and along with it, a scholarship to school. So this kind of just continued throughout my childhood. So what I did, I danced as much as I could. I tried to be at the studio as much as I could. My parents also put me into modeling and doing commercials, and so I was in that whole space as well. So my whole life, everything felt like a really big performance no matter what I was doing. And while all these things were happening, the expectation was you're going to be a straight-A student. You're going to learn in 2 languages. Like, you're just going to succeed. And I knew it all came from a great place. But at the time, I learned that love was a function of performance and success, and failure, like, that wasn't something that was allowed to happen. So throughout all of that, I mean, I was in the dance world. I was pretty busy. Body image was a big thing for me. Food was a big thing for probably most dancers that went through all of that. So that started happening in my teen years as well. And when I was about 15 is probably I was 15 when I had my first drink. So Mike's Hard Cranberry. I was at my best friend's cottage on the paddle boat. I remember it very clearly. And when I had that first drink, which we got from her older sister, I don't remember it like changing everything for me, but after I had one, I thought I was completely shit-faced after one cooler, and I just remember I couldn't wait to get my hands on alcohol the next time. But because of the life that I led, it didn't allow for a whole lot of time for drinking. I wasn't allowed to get out of line very much. So fast forward to college, I led this life where I had absolutely no control over my time, and then I go to college and I all of a sudden have all of these hours that I don't know what to do with. So I'd say my frosh week, I started drinking like, your typical college student would. And my godmother at the time, she was a teacher in high school, but we became a family friend. That was just when Facebook was really getting popular, and I spent my first week, smashing bottles of Smirnoff and posting albums on Facebook about all the fun that I was having. And she completely disowned me as someone that was really important in my life because she didn't like the photos that I was posting. So I got this really strong message that, again, love is going to be taken away from you if you do anything like this. So I had a really odd relationship with alcohol. Like I said at the beginning, I was either all in or I wasn't in at all. So if I did drink, if I had the chance to drink, I was blacking out drinking, which I thought was completely normal. I thought, if you're going to go drink, you might as well do it well. So at that time, a lot of food issues, body image stuff started creeping up because I had all this time. I wasn't dancing the way that I was used to. I developed an eating disorder. It's a big part of my story. Started out restricting a lot of food, doing a lot of exercise, and eventually that turned into binging and purging. And I talk about this as well because I started becoming afraid of alcohol because of the calories that I was putting into my body. So just this really complicated relationship that was starting to form. And that only worsened over the next 10 years of my life. And I've lived I've lived several lives. Again, I was 22 when I came to the States. My dad got transferred down to the U.S. right after the financial crisis, and I was 20 or 21 at the time, and I had to decide, do I stay in Canada or do I transfer down to the States with the rest of my family? So I decided to come, and I was plucked into Wentzville, Missouri, coming from Canada. I just graduated college. I had no contacts. Financial crisis had just happened, so getting a job was pretty difficult. So I decided to do the next best thing that I thought, which was go back to school, and I ended up going back to school for journalism. So I started a career in journalism, which took me to Washington, D.C., to New York City, and all throughout that, I always wanted to be the best that I could be, no matter what I was doing. So if I was going to go into the news, I was going to be the best news person that there was. And all of this while, I had a relationship with an eating disorder. I had a messed up relationship with alcohol, and then I was working a lot, and I had not a lot of time for anything else in my life. I ended up leaving that career, and I work in something completely different now, which brought me to Nashville, then up to Detroit, and then back down to Nashville. I've had a lot of moves in my life, so a lot of change. And with alcohol, I didn't start drinking to a point where it was a really obvious problem until I started dealing with my food stuff. So once I started really recovering from pretty intense bulimia, I had this newfound freedom, and I realized I could drink and it was okay. So as soon as I recovered from that, my alcoholism just completely took off. And I didn't see it as a problem. I saw it as, wow, I can actually have a relationship with alcohol now. I can drink it now. I can be like everyone else. I can have a lot of fun. And that didn't last a long time. That was right before COVID that started happening, and then COVID hit, and it got even worse. During COVID, my job went remote as well, and I had the brilliant idea of, well, if I'm going to work remotely, I can probably work remotely from anywhere. And the place that I decided to go was the U.S. Virgin Islands, which is not a great place if you're having an issue with alcohol. And again, so fortunate I was able to do that, but that was the beginning of the end for me. Excuse me. Drugs was something I said I would never, ever touch, because I knew if I touched drugs, if I touched anything, I'm all the way in. So it wasn't until the last year of drinking that I started using other substances, because I was drinking so much that I literally could not function. And on the island, what was normal to drink there, it's just a whole new level of drinking that I had never experienced anywhere else. And at first I was like, damn, I found my people. And I'd be flying back and forth there as much as I could. Still working, barely. And my life started to become a house of cards. And near the end, it was, one little blow and everything would have collapsed. And before that happened, I was actually talking with my sponsor at dinner right before this meeting today. My 3-year sobriety date is yesterday. 3 years ago today, I would have been missing teeth. I would have been missing my front teeth. I would have had a punctured lip, and my chin would have been split open, and I was boarding a plane to Vermont to go to rehab. You couldn't have told me I'd be standing up here telling my story to a room full of people. And there is no exciting story around how that happened to my face, other than I tripped over my own feet in my kitchen. I hit the corner of a wall. My teeth slid all the way down the corner. I have glossed concrete floor. So then I smacked my face on the ground. My tooth went through, lost some teeth. I didn't know what to do. One of my brothers is an ER doctor, so the next best thing I thought to do at the time, I was really messed up. I'm like, I should FaceTime Andrew to see if he can help me. So I did that. He was working a shift at the hospital. And he told me that I was okay. You know, he's like, as soon as I get off my shift, I'm going to come over and help you. So your head and your face bleeds a lot when you hurt it. So my house looked like a murder scene when he arrived. My sister-in-law came over too. But that was the moment that I had to raise the white flag. Like, I couldn't show up for work the next day. Like, I was missing teeth, and I was in a lot of pain. So Andrew stitched up my chin in my living room, and that day I called a reverse intervention on myself, and I got my whole family together, and I said, listen, guys, I had blood splattered up my legs from the fall, and I was like, I think I have a problem. And I think I should probably go to rehab tomorrow after I see a dentist. So the dentist gave me some fake teeth. They wired my teeth because they couldn't do a whole lot of work because they needed to grow back into my jaw. So I went off to rehab. I was almost a little bit proud of that because I'm like, at least I look the part and I'll fit in. But yeah, I went to rehab for 28 days. It was the best thing that ever happened to me, other than falling on my face. But like I said, if that didn't happen, I don't know what would have happened. And I was just thinking back on some of my experiences, especially messing around at night on boats in the Virgin Island with drugs and alcohol. I really don't know how I'm here today, but I am. But yeah, went to rehab, and I pretty much cried nonstop for the first week. My life is over. I'm going to lose my job. I still had a really great job at the time. And after a week, I'm like, I'm never going to have a chance again just to be disconnected from anything and spend time on me. So I shift my mentality, and I went all in at rehab. And what the folks at rehab had to tell me was, there's going to be no performance review at the end of this rehab, so you need to chill the fuck out. So I did. And I made it through rehab and came back to Nashville, and I went into IOP at Cumberland Heights. And the rehab that I went to was a dual diagnosis, and it didn't require me to go to AA or any specific program. We were exposed to it all. But when I went to IOP at Cumberland Heights, we were required to do 3 AA meetings a week. And I was like, okay, I'll do this because it's part of the rules for IOP, but I definitely don't need AA or God to keep me sober. I've already done 30 days. What else would I need? So I started going to Recovery on the Row because it was literally in the building next door. And people started talking to me at Recovery on the Row, including my sponsor, who's here in the front row. She said hi to me every week. And I would hardly even open my mouth because I had the wire on my teeth, and I was just really embarrassed. And I ended up making some pretty incredible connections at Recovery on the Row. One thing I left out a lot of things, but one thing relevant to what I want to say about God is one of the big struggles I had from, late teens to about 28, 29. I struggled a lot with my sexuality. And I came out when I was about 29 years old. So that is something else that really fueled my drinking, probably my eating disorder as well, because I didn't know who I was. So the whole what I thought was religion and God with AA, I was like, yeah, I definitely don't want to be a part of anything like that. That is going to force that on me after I just struggled through all this shit, trying to be gay in society. But one thing that Chris wasn't even my sponsor at the time, but she's like, you don't have to be willing to do everything. You just have to be willing to do something. And that's what I did. I kept doing one thing and another thing and another, whatever I was willing to do, I kept doing. Sometimes it took a few tries or a few weeks or months for me to be like, okay, I guess I'll give that a try once I exhausted everything else, but I kept doing that. So my mindset started shifting, and I'm like, maybe there's something to this. Like, I remember even telling my therapist, I'm like, I think I'm good. Like, I think I got this. And she's like, do you call your sponsor? And I'm like, yes. And she's like, do you go to meetings? I'm like, yes. And she's like, well, if you're good, why don't you stop doing those things? And I'm like, but I can't. So I stuck with it. And about a year into the program, I met someone, as we all do. And this was my first sober relationship. It was really my first real serious relationship with a woman as well. So it was pretty significant to me in my life. And I fell really, really, really hard for her. I met her in the program. Her name's Allison. And a year and a half ago, unfortunately, she passed away from this disease. And that almost broke me. But it didn't. And I thought the hardest part of all of this was going to be getting sober and staying sober. But the hardest part of all of this is having to feel all of the feelings that come up with being human. And grief is a bitch. Complicated grief is really difficult. And it was two women in the program. I wasn't physically with Allison when she passed, but it was two women in the program that showed up at my house and knocked on my door, a knock on your door that you never, ever want to hear. And they sat down with me, and I had no idea what was going on. And actually, one of them was in IOP with me, and they had to tell me the news. And my body made movements and noises I didn't know that it could. And my sponsor came to my house very quickly. Within, I don't know, probably less than an hour, my entire living room was full of women from the program and one guy. He ended up going home, though, because he's like, I'll let the women take it from here. But yeah, the first day after that, having to get out of bed, I did not want to do that. I did not want to get out of bed because I had to face everything. And I'd like to say I had a choice, but I almost feel like I didn't. Like, there was no way I was going to get through that thing alone. And someone very close to me that helped me through that time said, you know, I'm probably going to mess this quote up, but she's like, walking through grief together is painful. Walking through grief alone is suffering. And I didn't know her really well at the time, and I know her really well now. And I let her in, and I let in all of the other women in the program, inside and outside of the program, but especially inside the program. I let them in because there's no way I was going to be able to do that on my own. And I remember laying in bed one day, and I was telling my sponsor, I'm like, I can't do this. I can't keep going. Not that I wanted to kill myself, not that I didn't want to be here, but my body was in so much physical pain. I didn't even understand how my body could be in physical pain from something from heartbreak, from an emotion. And I remember her saying, "That's okay, because you don't have to." And I kept going. I kept showing up. I pretty much walked around with tears. Another friend of mine in the program, I needed to get groceries. She brought me to get groceries. I remember we were in the frozen aisle at Trader Joe's, and something that Allison and I loved to eat for dessert was those little mini ice cream cones that you get at Trader Joe's. And we got to that aisle, and I saw those ice cream cones, and I just completely lost it in the middle of Trader Joe's. And she just stood there with me, and it was okay. So it was all of these moments like that really got me through. I lost probably 25, 30 pounds during all of that. It's crazy that I'm up here talking about this again. I didn't think I was going to smile again. I didn't think I was going to feel joy again. I didn't think I was going to want to do anything ever again. I didn't think I'd ever want to date again. And tonight I was actually asked out on a date, and I told her no because I had a speaking engagement. We're just getting to know each other, so she has no idea what it's for. But it's all been worth it. And I can't believe that I'm up here saying that right now. Not that I would have ever wanted to go through that, or that I'd want anyone else to go through something like that, but I didn't think it would get better. People around me kept telling me it is going to get better, and they promised it, and it has. And it's wild how quickly it got better. That was, Allison died April 14th of 2023? 2024. And I've been able to walk through it, to walk through the good, to walk through the bad. What I've learned is that tragedy and miracles, they're both just around the corner. You never know what one's going to happen. And the rest of the time, everything's just kind of like at a 5. And I've come to really appreciate those 5s, which is something that was really hard for me to do. Something else I've learned, I've gone through really incredible things, really difficult things, but I feel like the hardest parts for me is when there isn't something big going on, or if there's something good going on. That's when I really need to lean into the program. That's when I need to start calling people. That's when I need to show up to meetings. It's like those big emotions. It's like, yeah, you're expected to fail or pick up or not do the right thing, but it's in those little moments when your guard is down. I'm going to share another story of when that happened. I love to travel. I love to surf. I've really gotten to surfing and sobriety, even though I live in Nashville. And I went to Puerto Rico for a couple weeks. And I was in a good place, having a really great time. I was working remotely there, surfing a bit. And one night I went out for dinner I was traveling alone. And I had a different sponsor at the time, and I had told her, I was on the phone with her, I'm like, I'm feeling a little lonely right now. Just not surrounded by my people. And she could tell that something was up. I didn't really know what was up, and hung up the phone. And I decided to, go into a restaurant for dinner. But I decided to sit at the bar. And while I sat down at the bar in front of all of the liquor, including my very specific tequila that I would always drink, I knew I wasn't in a good place. And as soon as I sat down, I got a text. I was on a group text from my sponsor and I think 4 other women that said, "Hey, Lauren's feeling really lonely right now. Do you think we could all FaceTime her after the meeting on Wednesday?" And at that point, I was looking at the menu and I was wondering if I could get oh my gosh, why can't I remember what they're called? a non-alcoholic espresso martini. I thought that would be a really great idea. And I know where that would have went. I was like, if I could just get that, like, not the alcohol, but just like the vibe. And I got that text, and when that text came in, my sponsor at the time was really embarrassed that I saw it. But when I got it, I was like, there's no way I can pick up a drink when I have support like this back at home. And I got, separately, I got a text from my current sponsor that said, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm sitting at a bar to eat dinner. And she knew that was kind of code for I'm not doing so hot. And she's like, you call me when you get back to wherever you're staying. So I did. And that night, I was honestly so close to picking back up. There was good things happening in my life. There wasn't anything significant. This is before I even met Allison. But it's those moments like that for me that I really need to lean in and not forget to walk away and not forget the program and to keep God in the center. So yeah, what I'm like now, I think I've covered a lot of that. I have two nephews that are 4 and 1 years old, and I was in very active addiction for the first year of the 4-year-old's life, and I really didn't know him, but I got sober, and in the last 3 years, his name is Sebastian, and he calls me Aunt Lolo, and we have become the best of friends. And one of the reasons why I moved back down to Nashville is to be close to my nephews and close to my family. It's a long story, but my whole family is here. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of today. But there's definitely still struggles, but you know, all the gifts and the goodness that has come from being sober, I could have never imagined. I mean, I was 32 at the time when I was kind of forced to stop drinking, or decided to not drink. And I was like, there is absolutely no way that I'm going to live any kind of cool life after this. And it didn't take too long for me to start saying, like, and I know we've heard it all several times today already, like, you can't even imagine how incredible that your life can get, even when all the hard stuff comes up, even when the things come up that no one should ever have to experience. Thank God that I wasn't drinking. So I just like to thank Steve. I think I saw him here in the room. Thank you for asking me to come speak here tonight. And thank you all for being here. It's an honor to be able to share my story.